Branding work is never done. It's always a different version or a work in progress. If you want to get good at branding, you've got to get really deep and intimate, not only with yourself, but also with your target audience. Branding is a very emotional thing.
Meet Kristie Keever, a dynamic branding and marketing guru, founder of Kristie Keever Coaching and Consulting International, worked with thousands of clients across more than 800 niches in over 40 countries.
When it comes to branding, most people typically go to hiring that interior decorator. I want to make a logo and decide my colors and what fonts should I use and what should this look like. Design should actually come from the strategic foundation of which everything is built. That helps to determine your success. So you might not have all the answers. That's okay. You're not supposed to, because you're still on that journey of discovery. It's always a different version of work in progress. You learn things as you go. If you're wanting to make impact, what kind of impact are you ultimately wanting to create? And then how do you want that to feel? The most important thing is
the Content Capitalist Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. I have someone here who I've actually invested my own money in hiring her because of the experience and the knowledge she has in the category of branding. And I brought her on here because I feel like the experience I had working with her and the few insights she gave me was enough for me to change my trajectory by enough so that I can see where it's going to be years down the road because of the changes that we made together. And I want to welcome Kristie Keever to the show. Kristie, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
So, Kristie, we've worked together in the past, and I was really impressed with, I think I would describe it as like the Occam's razor of, instead of giving me a huge list of brand colors and fonts and, 30 different phrases and all these photos I need to take and stuff like that, you just helped me to get the message succinct in I think literally 6 words. And from that, everything started to just click into place. And I think that for a lot of people, when they think about branding, they're thinking about all this stuff and not enough about the meaning or not enough about the underlying message. And you really helped me with that. I was very impressed. I'll give a really quick bio. I've got some notes here for everybody listening. Founder of Online Brand Academy, creator of the signature framework called Elevate, which we're going to get into a little bit later. And you've helped thousands of people to build profitable brands. You've been on TEDx. You've been featured on Oprah on that platform. That's amazing.
I haven't actually.
Oh, you haven't?
I would love to say that I've been featured on Oprah and TEDx. That's actually a combination of where myself and my clients have been featured. So I have to give most of the credits to my clients. Yes.
You know what? I should have read the fine print. It says, Kristie's work has been able to her clients and herself. Okay. And I appreciate the clarification up front. And again, really good for your brand. There's the transparency and authenticity right up front. I appreciate that. Kristie, would you mind giving us in your own words, what kind of people do you work with and what kind of problems are they facing when they come to you?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to have this conversation with you. So the people that I typically work with are people who want to make an impact. They wear their hearts on their sleeves. They have something, a skill set, a talent, something that they want to share that they know is going to be able to help other people in some capacity. A lot of my clients want to be authors, speakers, coaches, creators. So they want to be able to be the vehicle to deliver the message of impact to their audience, and they want to grow an audience. And the problem that they're having is actually 2 key pieces. Number one, they're skipping over the most important piece and trying to figure out why things aren't working the way that they should be or the way that they want them to, or they're getting stuck in their head. They're getting stuck in mindset, overthinking things, making it more complicated, comparing themselves, second guessing themselves, etc. And so how I work with them is really to dig deep into the foundational clarity that they need. And a lot of times people come to me, they already have so many great pieces in place, like you, when we work together, so many great pieces in place, but there are gaps that's missing the connection of everything together. And the connection of everything together really helps land and resonate and attract that target audience and lead to conversions very authentically, very organically. So I help connect the dots.
That's amazing. And why is it you think that so many of us, including myself, struggle to see how these dots connect? And we need to bring outside help. Like, we're in it every day, we're doing it, but sometimes it's invisible to us. Any idea why that's going on?
Oh, absolutely. I have this conversation a lot, and I do it myself too. We all are guilty of this, and there's nothing, we're not doing anything wrong, but what we are doing is we're so focused on the work. We're so focused on the to-dos. We're focused on making progress. We're focused on putting things together, and so we are digging that trench. And what we're doing is we're digging so hard and staying focused and being diligent and focus on consistency that we forget to look up. It's when we look up and look around that we realize, oh, I feel like I've gotten off track, or I feel like I've missed something, or how far have I actually dug, because we're not really paying attention. And so when we think about that digging of the trench, what's actually happening is what we're creating sits so close to our hearts, especially for people who want to make an impact. Hearts, we wear our hearts on our sleeves, right? And so because it's so close, if it's sitting on the tip of our nose, I don't know about you, Ken, but if I look in the mirror, I can see the tip of my nose, but it's backwards, right? So that message, the information that we might be missing, the things that we're trying to connect, the message that we're trying to relay, the impact that we're trying to make, it's kind of jarbled and kind of mixed. It's mixed all over the place. So we can't see it for what it is. And we're so close to it that we can't step back far enough to be able to see what's missing. Where did I go wrong? What do I need to get back on track? Because we've just been focused on that trench.
I think almost everybody is facing that, unless they just recently took a long, hard look or worked with someone like yourself and got that perspective.
Every successful person needs to be able to ask for help at certain points on their journey. It's the people who are the most successful are the ones that are willing to ask for help and say, hey, I don't know what I'm missing. I don't know if I'm overthinking, if I'm overlooking, show me where the gaps are so that I can fix it, fill it, and move forward. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering, because I was actually looking around at a few different experts who are, in the branding space and who might be able to help me. I settled working with you. I didn't settle for you, but after weighing all the options, and I'm seeing a majority of women in this space who are experts at this. I'm wondering if you have any idea or any science behind why do you think women seem to gravitate toward this, or potentially be much better at this than men? Because there was definitely an asymmetric balance of women in the branding space more than men.
Mm-hmm. That is a really good question. I think that women are natural thinkers, right? We're deep thinkers. We're deep processors. We're also deep feelers, and we're really connected to our emotions. And branding is a very emotional thing. It's a very intimate thing. And if you want to get good at branding, you've got to get really deep and intimate, not only with yourself, but also with your target audience so that you can make that connection. And so I think women, we have the ability to ask deeper questions. That question when you're dating somebody or you're married to someone, you have a significant partner, tell me what's on your mind. What are you thinking about? We're always thinking about that. We're always curious creatures to know, what are you processing right now? And so I think knowing that information and being able to incorporate that into your business positioning to help determine your level of success, it all comes down to creating connections, right? And so if we're not creating connections with the right people that we're wanting to connect with, then the chance of conversion is decreased substantially. So I think women, we just have a natural skill set to be able to pull out the deepness that needs to be present.
And are you finding your clientele being more women or men, or pretty split down the middle?
That's actually a really interesting question. So for many years, I positioned myself as the person who helped women entrepreneurs build personal brands. 90% of my client roster that I've worked with consistently has been men. But men who know that their target audience, their decision maker or their primary buyer is women, so they need to appeal to the woman first. And they knew that they needed to be able to make deeper connections with their target audience. So most of the clients I work with are men.
I think that's right there is a huge value bomb right there, because I wouldn't have found this out without talking to you. But yeah, if you are a man and you have female clients, whether female and male or female, I think you really need to talk to a woman, because if you're thinking through your own head, thinking through your own, feeling through your own feelings, you're only going to end up with stuff that appeals to people like you, and you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You're leaving a lot of people you could help not getting your help. So that's that right there. That's great. I want to jump a bit further into your past. What got you into this, and what were you doing before you hung your sign on figuratively up saying, I'm a branding expert? What brought you to this?
Yeah, well, it wasn't like I set out saying, I'm going to be a brand strategist and specialize in personal branding one day. My journey actually started in sales. I have a sales background, but before that, I actually have an IT background. So my degree is in IT, in information systems. And so I started out my journey on a career path, or on a sales career path, and was very successful in sales. Learned that it was all based off of really your ability to create connection and good relationships with people. Over time, that developed into, I started working more on the marketing side. The last corporate job that I had, my position was marketing director, and really got into, that's where Facebook was really big at the time, and business pages were the hot thing at that time. This was like 2011. And I realized that people were having a really hard time unanimously making connections with their target audience and converting. And I was frustrated in my position because I wasn't able to really paint that full picture that somebody actually needed to be able to be successful the way that they wanted to, because the company that I worked for, we only provided one piece of the equation. And so I set out on my own journey to really dig into why are marketing efforts not working. And it really comes down to a 4-pillar foundation to this. Going to work on my own, I was able to kind of create that program, create that structure to allow people to properly position themselves to see those results. And so it was a very organic transition. It allowed me to kind of build on the skill set that I started from the very beginning, connecting those dots, that sales success comes from quality connections and conversations. Marketing efforts miss the mark unless you have a full foundation to build from. Then conversions feel organic, and then individual people are positioned for success if they have that foundation and are able to show up authentically as well. So it's kind of one step has led to the next over time. And I really kind of stuck my flag in the ground and said, this is what I do. In about 2015, I would say, as a brand strategist and a brand specialist.
Did you start by asking your friends and family, like, hey, who needs help? Or former colleagues, employers, like, how did you start it as a business and get successful as you are?
Yeah, good question. So I am one of those strange people. I love cold calling and I love cold networking. So I will very confidently,
Can
very
I hire
comfortably
you again?
walk. Absolutely. I would love to work with you again. But I can walk into a room of 800, 1,000 people and make it my goal not to find clients, but to make quality connections with people. So when I first started my business, my goal was to meet as many people as I could with a similar audience that I wanted to help serve, and just build a relationship, because I knew that sales and referrals and network is all built off of relationships. So that was my goal. And I networked like the Dickens. It was my full-time job. I was networking morning, evening, and nighttime, because that's what I knew was going to help make my business successful. So what I ended up doing is networking myself into strategic partnerships and collaborations, and just brought my services in as a value add onto their services. It allowed me to tap into an audience also sell some of my offers. And within the first 6 months of starting out my business, I was already at six figures just through these strategic partnerships.
Well, you just said it right there. I think that you make it sound simple, but so many people struggle with that first bit, the networking and things like that. Do you think there's something that sets you apart from other people who spend so much time networking? Maybe they go join BNI or local chamber of commerce, whatever it is they're doing. I know of people who've, made announcements about, starting their business, and they did exactly what you said. 6 months later, they go back to their old job because they can't make it work. And I'm sure you've seen those kind of people too. What do you think set you apart?
I think it has everything to do with your approach. If you walk into an event saying, I'm going to find 6 new clients at this event today, then you're not going to be successful, because it isn't about a transaction. It's about, are you able to connect with people and form relationships over time? Okay. So I knew that walking into a room, sometimes somebody would say, yes, I've been looking for someone like you. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's sign the contract. Let's get started today. Very rarely would that ever happen. But what would happen most often is, I like what you're saying. I would love to learn more. I'd love to learn more about you and about your target audience, and how we can find a creative way to work together to make sure it's win-win and extend value to our respective audiences, with no expectation, no agenda outside of that. So on average, it would take me about 5 to 6 meetings with an individual to finally get to some kind of transaction. But when the transactions came, it was many transactions, multiple transactions at a time instead of one client.
That's, it's just good old fashioned being helpful, being present. And, I think that it's so refreshing to come back to good old fashioned, like Dale Carnegie, principles versus social media growth hacking and LinkedIn spamming and email this and that and the other and AI bots. Like, sure, that's going to give you a shot in the arm, but if you don't have that foundational brand down, that presence, your personality, the authenticity, you're just going to be expanding something that is kind of shitty and, and you're going to stink, aren't you?
Yeah, you can smell that old used car salesman. Nothing against used car salesmen, but the stereotypical a mile away. The people who would go to networking events with a business card already in their palm, so then when you reached out to shake hands, they would transfer the business card before you even asked for it. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there like that. But it really just comes down to being yourself, showing up consistently, allowing people to get to know you over time, building that know, like, and trust and that respect. And then from there, business just naturally happens.
And how has that translated into online? Because you're talking about meeting people and networking. And now I found you online, and apparently a lot of other people are finding you online based on all the reviews I'm seeing on the platforms. Tell me about that transition.
Yeah, it's really interesting because people have a different mindset around in-person networking versus online networking. And I really like to encourage people to not think of them any differently, and instead realize that the only difference between on and off networking is that there's a delay in the conversation that doesn't happen when you're in person. Okay. So if you think about it, what you want to do, I like to say, you remember working in old corporate where you'd have the water cooler talk, where it's kind of the place where everybody would connect and have a little chit chat for the day, or you'd walk the halls to say, hey, how's it going? Good morning. How was your weekend? How are the kids? Da, da, da. Like, you're just building rapport with people, right? So I like to encourage my clients to still walk the halls, but doing it in an online capacity, knowing that a traditional 10-minute walk around the office is now 2 15-minute sessions per day online, because you have to go back at the end of the day and check your messages.
Mm. So tell me about these 2 15-minute sessions. How do we do it? What goes on?
Yeah. So you always start your day in the morning with you set a timer, you go for 15 minutes, and you jump into your dedicated networking spaces. For some people, it's Facebook groups. For some people, it's LinkedIn. Some people, they might have a community and they need to network and engage inside. So you set your timer to just show up and be present. You post a question, you post a tip, you answer questions, you look for ways to be helpful without being salesy. You're not pitching anything, you're not offering anything, you're just trying to show up as the person who is well liked, who is always helpful with a resource and always willing to help in some capacity. Okay, cheering other people up. So promoting or celebrating other people is also really important too. So you do that for 15 minutes. You probably send some notes or send some messages, and then you kind of do your business throughout the day. If you have time in the middle of the day, you can go ahead and check, another 10 or 15 minutes, check your messages, respond to things. But that way, you're allowing people to see you. You're allowing people to see you as that consistent, reliable, helpful, resourceful person that everybody likes, so that when somebody thinks, oh, I need branding help, or I need to ask someone a branding question, does anybody know anyone to go to? And then all of a sudden everybody's leaving your name in the comments like, oh, you have to talk to Kristie, or check out so-and-so, or I hired blah, blah, blah. That's how you become known as a go-to source and a go-to authority.
That's really, really close to how I get most of my clients. But the thing I struggle with is being a business owner. And I think that there's a high percentage of business owners who have ADHD. 15 minutes quickly turns to 30 and sometimes 45. And on occasion, it's an hour. And then I guess there's this part of me that is excusing it because I do get a lot of clients just from engaging on social media, creating posts and answering people's questions. But I guess that's why I have a personal assistant who who gets to all the easy to answer questions first, and then the stuff that has to be me, I jump in there. So I guess it's a double-edged sword. If you are anything like myself or a few of my entrepreneur friends I know who could get sucked in pretty deep pretty quickly. But definitely what you're saying, I will attest to making at least $4 or $5 million off of just doing that. Not running ads, just making posts, being helpful, and then people having reached out to me or tagged me in other people's posts, and that turning into business. I'd like to ask about the Elevate framework that you have. Is that something you can walk us through?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really the foundation that everything is built on. So when you think about a successful business, you think about a successful personal brand, business brand, et cetera, they all are built on a foundation similar to building a house, right? When it comes to branding, most people typically go to hiring that interior decorator. I want to make a logo and decide my colors and what fonts should I use and what should this look like? Design should actually come from the strategic foundation of which everything is built. That just helps to determine your success. So there are 4 key pillars to this. Pillar number 1 is being very clear on your vision. If you don't know where you're going or what it is that you're trying to build, it's really hard to get there because you don't know what steps to take, or you don't know what goals or mile markers to put in place. Okay. So vision is your why, it's your mission, it's your passion, it's your purpose. It's that big picture. It's kind of like the vision board for your personal life that people do every first of the year. It's doing that strategically for your business. What do you want your business to actually create for you and for other people? What kind of impact are you making? Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2 is your target audience. Now, with your target audience, there are 2 pieces to target audience, and most people miss the second piece. The first piece, though, is your basic demographics, geographic location, income status, social status, education level, etc. The second piece is the psychographics, so the neuroscience and the psychology that goes into the sales communication that you need to have in order to get them to easily convert without you feeling salesy or trying too hard. Okay, so that's those 2 pieces. And the third piece then is your offers. So mapping out your offer suite or your value ladder to make sure that you have multiple touch points or multiple revenue streams so that people can say yes to, but don't require you to constantly show up in only one way or one fashion. And this is why a lot of coaches get burnt out, because they're just doing one-on-one calls, they're doing one-on-one coaching or one-on-one contracts with people. But when you have everything fleshed out, then you have multiple touch points of communication to get people to convert according to where they are on that customer journey or that buyer's map. Okay. Then the fourth one is now your messaging. So your message comes in to paint the picture, to tell the story that speaks to the target audience in their words from the psychographics, and then converts them into something that you have to offer. So something in your value letter or your offer suite. So we really dig into, all the content, all the brand story, the messaging pillars. It comes part from you and what it is that you're wanting to deliver in that ultimate vision, but also from the psychographics from the target audience. So we kind of combine them together to make this perfect mix that feels very organic and authentic and attractive to your target audience. Then once that foundation is built, we have 2 more stages or 2 more steps. And this is where the Elevate really goes on massive momentum. From here, it's incorporating your unique custom communication strategy that takes into consideration your personality type and preferred method of communication, and how to communicate what it is that you're doing for who, so that you create the opportunity to have conversations for converting. Now, this can look different for everybody. I have some people that I work with who are like, Kristie, I just want to do webinars and I just want to sell a course. And others, I say, I want to be a thought leader and an influencer, and I want to be on that TEDx stage. I want to write a book, etc. And so approaches are going to be a little bit different according to what that end goal, what that strategy is that you're trying to accomplish. But the networking piece is that piece that goes in there. Then from there, it's marketing. So we don't want to network without marketing. So like you said, creating content and then having conversations with people leads to conversion. So the marketing is creating the content, but the right content at the right time with the right message for that audience that you're trying to attract. So it's 6 stages or 6 steps to that Elevate program to position you as that go-to authority, the thought leader, whatever is that outcome that you're looking to accomplish.
I think you broke it down really well. And as you're saying all this, I'm extremely visual and I'm trying to build a chart in my head here. I'm sure there's somewhere where people can see a breakdown of this. Is there a resource that you could share with us that I'll put into the link that kind of walks us through this in more detail?
I do have a roadmap. It is a visual because I'm a visual processor as well. So I do have a roadmap of all the stages and the steps.
Perfect. So guys, if you're watching on YouTube, then do check out the description. We'll put the link there. And if you're listening on the podcast, go to the show notes. We'll have the link there that we'll get right after we have this conversation. I'd like to ask a question about your studio set right now. I know you're probably at home, but if you're listening on the podcast, then I'd encourage you to click the YouTube link and have a look at this. It's a visual experience. Behind you, Kristie, is beautiful whitewashed, shelves. You've got an atlas. You've got some plants, a framed picture, some little glass jars. What I'm saying is it's framed beautifully. The colors are all complementary and appealing. The way your makeup and your hair is done is very professional.
Thank you.
Can you walk me through a bit of how you go about your brand when it comes to your visual appearance, especially because you probably work with clients on Zoom a lot? And how do you think through it, number one? And number two, what effects are you seeing as a result of having worked on your visual representation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I get a lot of compliments about my studio setup. On my Instagram account, I actually have a whole walkthrough tour of my studio because it's not just this one piece, but thank you. It really comes down to that vision, the first step of the whole process. How do you want to be seen? How do you want to be perceived? So for me, perception is about there is order, there is intention, there's cleanliness, it's very intentional, it's very authentic, and it's also very much in alignment with my personal style. If I were to pick up the camera here and walk you through the rest of my home, it's all very cohesive to what you see in the background here. And that's just my personal style. But when I'm working with people in a creative direction capacity, so trying to figure out, what does your personal style look like? What does your background need to represent? How do you want to be seen? There is several conversations that go into that to figure out what is the setup that needs to be created for you so that everything looks the way that you want to be perceived. And so it comes down to personal style. I always ask them, describe to me your home. So pretend like you're giving me a tour, walking through your home. What does that look like? And does that feel like an accurate and true representation of you? And if not, then let's talk about what does and what that looks like. And then we go through the process of creating a mood board and collaborating on a mood board together. So we do that on Pinterest and just pin some images that feel very aligned to you, what feels very good to you, but also what feels very expansive. So not just a representation of where you are today, but where you want to be in the future. So 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, what does that look like? What do you want that experience to be? And so we're doing a little bit of future casting here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, but we're also future casting a bit to really paint that picture so that even if you're not exactly where you want to be today, you can still have a presentation, a persona that you present on facing forward, even if you're just meeting Zoom clients in your home every day, which is what I do all over the world. I meet here in my studio. But you show up a way that you want to be perceived. I could have very easily, wore a sweatshirt and not had my hair up or, none of that. But I know how I want people to perceive me. I am helping people build personal brands and making those personal brands very profitable and very successful for them. And so I have to be a representation of I am somebody that you can trust to help get you there by what you see and how you experience me.
I'm going to coin this term, professional catfishing, but I've been on calls with people who, I meet them online and their best self is out there. And they're good at what they do, but their brand presence, like I see a messy bed behind them. I'm practically looking up their nostrils when we're having a conversation because they're on their laptop is way down too low. Or they're sitting in front of a window and they're completely a silhouette. And then, I try to ignore it, but I'm a visual guy. So, it definitely hits me. But when we first had our conversation, you were very much exactly how you presented yourself online. I think you're at home. Are you at home?
I am. This is my home studio. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So even though you're at home, you still take the time to dress as if you're going to work and to do makeup. And I think there's some, very simple but elegant jewelry. And these are things that I think that people don't understand how valuable it is, whether it's conscious or subconscious. It's extremely valuable in being perceived as a professional. And that's one of the reasons, probably not consciously, but one of the reasons I was like, you know what? I'm going to pay this woman some money because I think that she's got her shit together. I actually do have some questions. Some specifics about your set, because people ask me a lot of time about my set, about my studio set. I actually made a whole series about setting up a podcast studio, home studio, and I get flooded with questions, even though this is not really what I do. I just get asked all the time. But you have symmetry in the back. You've got, shelves on the left and the right, and then a wider section in the middle. Why is symmetry important for you?
Oh, I think that actually comes from my OCD. There has to be clean lines, straight lines. Things have to have order, have a place, proper spacing, but it also translates into creative direction and designs that I do as well. There has to be white space there, and not white space, not as in the color white, but white space in regards to breathing room, right? I can't be overloaded with information. And you really have to think about, I am very strategic and very intentional about, regardless of the industry, regardless of the person that I'm talking to, when I'm working with them to build their personal brand, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the target audience that you're trying to work with. And what is that impression and what is that experience that you're giving to me now that needs to be adjusted in order to be accommodating to them? Because when you think about this, even if we're looking to find somebody to date, or we're interested in getting married, or whatever the situation is, it comes down to that first impression. And that first impression is usually what you see, right? 9 out of 10 times. And so we're doing the same thing in our business. So we need to make sure that how we're showing up, from what we see to even first basic interactions, we're showing up in a way that's going to be most attractive and appealing to our target audience. But at the same time, also very authentic and in alignment with who we are naturally as well. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to set you up in a way to feel like you have to put on a fake persona to show up. And then when people have the chance to meet you in person or work with you one-on-one, and it's a totally different experience, that discredits your trust tremendously, and it's really hard to come back from that.
We're going to call it catfishing, okay? Professional
Yes, okay.
catfishing.
Professional catfishing. If you professional catfish, you cannot recover from that. It's really hard to recover from that. I like that term though, professional catfishing.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a few lightning round questions. And this is going to be more about discovering you, if it's okay with you.
Absolutely.
What's the significance of the atlas? What does that mean to you?
This is actually a map. I don't know if you can see all the black dots on there. These represent the different locations where all of my clients are located.
Okay. Tell me about the color white. There's a lot of white in your setup.
Yeah. White is a nice, grounding, free-flowing, breathing color for me. It represents space.
Your shelves are about, I'd say 60% full. And I know you said before, like there needs to be like white space and things like that. How do you choose what goes on there? I see some books, some plants, frame photos. Are these things that are sentimental to you, or are they things that you think will better appeal to the person you're speaking to? Like there's got to be a balance.
Yeah, that is a good question. I would say about 95% are things that are sentimental to me. I mean, I have pictures of my family, important books that I read, because I have lots of books in the closet, but only the important books make it to the shelves, right? I am a words of affirmation is my love language. So you're going to see a lot of words in my studio, even on the back wall here, you can't see on camera. And then some of them, I'm just thinking, I'm looking, I think actually everything has some kind of sentimental meaning to me in some capacity.
I noticed something that I think a lot of people who don't have history in film or video may not notice, but you picked a color palette for your makeup that shows up very well on video. And as you know, when you are on TV or on stage, there's a different style for in person that shows up really well. And there's a different style for on camera. Could you walk us a bit through that? And I'm not a makeup expert, but I have hired many of them. And I do know they're two different arts. And it looks like you're going for something that shows up well on camera. And I don't think the men are they might zone out here, but I think for the women, they need to understand the difference. Could you walk us through a little bit of that? Because you know what you're talking about because you're doing it well.
Thank you so much. But this is actually my everyday look. I don't do anything special to turn the camera on. This is just the same routine I do every single day, but there is intention to it. And in high school, I did some work in theater. I wasn't on stage performing, but kind of stage crew, if you will. So really being focused and intentional on not just the actor or the person playing the part, but what's going on in the background, because all of it together creates experience and tells story. So I think even from a very young age, I already picked up on the fact that it's not always just one piece to the equation. It's how that piece fits into a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is what counts and what matters most, right? When you think a lot of people, if given the opportunity to go back and redo their wedding over, for example, like what's the one thing that you would add to that experience? 9 out of 10 times they're going to say, oh, I'd add more detail, more, detailed touches throughout the whole venue or the event to kind of make it a better experience. That's what most people would say. And so when it comes to, makeup, again, it just goes back to how do you want to be perceived? How do you want to show up? How do you want people to feel that same experience from you? Whether, I'm out walking my dog and I run into a neighbor, they're going to get the same version of me that you're going to see where I'm showing up right now. Right after this call, I'm actually going to go walk my dog for the day. And so there's no difference. But at the same time, I also have clients who do have more of a laid back, more simplified approach. And that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The most important thing is you have to be cohesive and consistent in determining what fashion you want people to allow you to be perceived from a branding perspective, right? Because it shouldn't feel too far of a different experience having the chance to talk to you, whether online or in person.
Then there's this instinct, though, where there's going to be a part of me which is going to feel like it's always playing a role, even though it is rooted in my personality, in my skills and things like that. But if I have to stick to always being a certain way versus just not caring, like, how do you, I mean, there's got to be times where you don't want to be the professional you, and you just want to be the, I don't know, sitting in your pajamas watching Netflix with fingers covered in Cheetos you or something, right? And that's
absolutely.
I mean, come on, we all do that, right? So I guess what I'm gonna guess is like, hey, if I'm gonna be seen in public, then this is my public persona, this is my private persona. Is that pretty much how you divide the two?
Yeah, absolutely. You can say that. I think that private persona is me going into hermit mode and just not leaving the house for the whole weekend, right? I usually don't schedule anything on Fridays. Yes, hermit mode. Nobody sees. If I know no one's going to see me and I'm not going anywhere, then yeah, I'm wearing my sweatshirt. My hair is completely pulled up. It probably has oil in it. Because I'm getting ready for a wash day or whatever. And I'm just hanging out on the sofa watching TV with my husband while I'm doing a little work on the side. Right.
I'm going to pitch you something. We're going to launch a brand of merch called Hermit Mode. And it's going to be baggy, comfortable, ugly clothes that you just wear around the house. There's going to be, slippers and bathrobes and hoodies and everything. Hermit Mode.
I love it.
I love
it.
That'll work,
I'll buy the whole line.
Yeah. And it'll be like, no cameras, I'm in hermit mode. Like, shut the curtains, I'm in hermit mode.
No interviews, please.
Turn the lights off, I'm in hermit mode. That could work. Okay, we've just got a few minutes left, and I want to respect your time and also the fact that your dog's probably waiting for you for that walk. How do we look at AI and how this plays into brand and content creation, public, I get your voice and things like that?
That is a really good question. I'm so glad you asked that. I think that when it comes to AI, there are things that are helpful. It's really helpful and useful in certain capacities, but not something that you want to rely on completely, right? There still needs to be a human element, a human touch, human editing, because you do want to make sure that your voice comes in so it's the most authentic sounding to you. Now, there are tricks to making it sound more like you. However, but it's impossible to make it completely on the head that you need it to be in order to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish, which is to convert an authentic audience into your offers, your services, etc. So I think that I personally like to use AI to kind of flesh out some of the details, get a lot of the foundation fleshed out, give me a draft to work from that I can then edit, revise, and refine to deliver a final product or create a final version. But I think that if you're using AI solely for complete automated creation, I think you're missing the mark for authentic, genuine, real connection.
I'm wondering, have you noticed anything from, let's say, a famous celebrity or politician or something in the news, and the moment you read it, you get the gut feeling, I think this is AI? Like, I'm not talking about like people's blogs or SEO articles, because I think everybody's playing with it there, but I'm talking about like on the national level. Have you seen that?
Not yet. I know there was some talk about Princess Catherine, some of the images that were posted, some of them were AI edited or generated, etc. So I don't know. I think there's definitely a conversation there, but really, I'm looking at a lot of ads. I'm looking at a lot of content. I'm studying a lot of influencers and people out on social media, just always doing research for my clients, staying on top of strategic positioning. And I haven't yet seen it in major media outlets, but I have seen it in a lot of individual clients. So for example, when I do a lot of strategic hour consultations with people, and I ask them to submit, bits of information for me to help me get a basic understanding before we dig into conversation. And I can tell right away when they're answering the questions, and it has a different sound, it has a different cadence than an actual person would have. And I can spot it a mile away. So when I have the chance to actually get on a call with them, asking them more prompting questions about the information they provided, I say, so how do you find using AI to produce some of these results? Do you like it? Do you not? Instead of asking them, did you use AI for this? I ask them how they like it. And they always confess that, yes, I used AI for this. I said, okay, this is a great place to start, but let's fill in some of the gaps that you need in order to create a version that actually sounds like it's coming from you instead of a robot.
That's a very elegant way to turn that conversation in the right direction. Have you ever seen an ad or any kind of promotional material, and it's AI? How does that affect you as a potential customer for that brand or product?
I haven't seen a lot of this actually, so I can't really say that it's affecting me one way or another. There's one ad that comes to mind though, is a Dove ad, specifically targeting women, but and don't quote me if I'm wrong, I might mess this up, but the AI was used to have a campaign talking about natural beauty. And they've done a campaign like this before, but this one they came straight out and said, this is generated by AI. Let's see what AI produces as a result. So they asked AI to produce the most beautiful looking woman in the world. So it created a persona of what she looked like, character features and characteristics about her, very realistic representation of what AI assumed as a beautiful woman. And then it started asking different questions along the way, and it turned into something that wasn't true, wasn't authentic, very disconnected version of authentic beauty, and then showed what a human team was able to produce for this authentic beauty and showed people the difference. Because in the news and the media, there's a lot of photoshopping, photo editing, making women feel like their bodies and shapes and sizes and things are not good enough because we're not properly represented. We're doing better now, but not so much in the past. And so I thought that was really powerful to show the misconceptions that AI produced versus what reality is, that there was a very stark difference between the two. So to not get confused on something that's AI versus something that's reality. I thought it was pretty powerful.
I've got to go look that one up. Sounds interesting. I've got a question, and I'd like you to also think of a question that anybody listening to this could ask themselves. I would help them start, pointing in the right direction. My question is this: if you are not clear about what is your big vision, because when we started this podcast, you said that the first thing you want to get clear on is, what do you represent? What do you stand for? How do you want to change the world? But I think a lot of people don't know. They might have stumbled into entrepreneurship because they were a really, really good plumber, and everybody said, hey, you should start a business, or they're a really good accountant or lawyer, right? And they're so busy doing business that they don't have that vision lined up. And you said that the most important thing is to get that lined up and then to build your brand around that. So let's say that you don't have it. Do you suggest that we come up with a placeholder that will, be good enough until you think of something better and then build your brand around that? Or B, stop and go take time to go find yourself or your mission, and however long it takes, and when it feels 100% right, then come back and hire the graphics designers, the brand specialists like yourself. How do we deal with that situation?
Yeah, this is such a good question. I always say, don't wait for it to be perfect, because perfect will never come, right? So I say, use a version that feels most aligned to you right now. You might not have all the answers, and that's okay. You're not supposed to, because you're still on that journey of discovery. It's always a journey of discovery, and branding work is never done. It's always a different version or a work in progress, right? You learn things as you go. So I say, if you're just getting started, or wherever you are right now, if you've never done this activity before, then stop where you are and create a version that you know to be true today. That's a good enough version to build from, to allow you to move forward, to continue to learn more, to collect data, to get feedback, to discover yourself a little bit more, what you like, what you don't like, who you like to work with, who you don't like to work with, etc. And then also, as you get older, your personal preferences and priorities change too, right? So you want to factor all of those into the equation as well. And then when you feel and when you know that you've kind of outgrown that version, and people always ask, when do I know it's time to level up or do another version? You can feel it. It feels like you've outgrown the skin that you're in and you need something different. You're ready for a bigger size, a bigger suit, whatever it is. And then that's when it's time to go ahead and create that next version. But never wait for everything to be perfect and be 100% clear, because you're never going to be clear. You're just going to be clear enough for where you are today to continue to learn more as you continue to grow. Your version 1 will never be the same as version 10, etc.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Now, if you could give the listener a question to chew on that will help them to start thinking about branding in a way that's going to open up, maybe unlock some steps for them, what would that be?
Yeah, good one. So if you're wanting to make impact, what kind of impact are you ultimately wanting to create? And then how do you want that to feel? With that question of how you want it to feel, there's other things that come into it. In order for it to feel a certain way, what needs to be present to allow that feeling to flow?
These are really good. And I know we're out of time, but I just want to share one thing that's been like a productivity hack for me. And it ties into what you just said there. I go to the gym like 4 times a week, and it's like, like 2 hours roughly once I walk in and out. And a lot of that's about 30 minutes of it is cardio, just running on the treadmill. And I used to always be listening to podcasts or some kind of audiobook and, being, productivity driven. And then one day I forgot my AirPods, the same ones I'm wearing right now. And I was like, oh, well, this is going to be boring. But as I was on that treadmill, I started working out and answering a lot of questions and problems just by being alone with myself and my thoughts. And now every time I go to the gym, when I'm on the weight racks and stuff, I do listen to audiobooks and stuff, but because it's just a different mode of thinking. But when I'm on the treadmill, I take off my earbuds every single time and I ask myself a question, and I got 30 minutes and my mind is working on me, and I'm having a conversation and working out these kind of problems. And that's what you just asked there is the exact what I'm going to be doing today. And I know that if I just ask myself a question and run for 30 minutes, then a lot is going to happen. A lot. And that's how I take these kind of questions. So thank you for that. I'm going to use that myself. And I want to close this off by inviting you to, when I say you, everybody listening, to please check out the links below. Kristie is really good at what she does. And I think that if you are looking for going in the right directions, at least go to the website, see what she's about. Check her out on social media. And there's going to be some resources there that she's very kindly agreed to share. And we're going to have links to that as well. Dive into her stuff. And if it feels like a good fit, and if you feel like she's got some advice or answers that will, push you closer to where you want to be as far as your brand, as far as connecting with yourself, with your own message, and with your audience, your customers, then I do recommend seriously considering having a conversation with her. So check out the links. And other than that, thank you so much for listening to the end. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this?
No, this was beautiful. Thank you for this conversation. It's so fun.
Okay. Well, that's it for now, guys. And I'll see you next week.
No hustle worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fading, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.